Hello, and welcome to Compelled to Act, where we do things unscripted, unedited, and off the cuff. Today, we will be looking at quite a few of the instances where the media misrepresent former President, hopefully future President Trump. So let's jump right into it. First, we're going to look at how the media framed drinking or injecting bleach. Let's just go ahead and take a quick look at Inside Edition here and how they presented this.
And then I see.
So they obviously are framing it. Should you drink or inject it? Well, let's go straight to the actual clip and see exactly what he said and what your takeaways are from seeing the clip. What did he actually say, and what do you infer from this clip?
So I ask Bill a question that probably some of you are thinking of if you're totally into that world, which I find to be very interesting. So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
So you can see he did not suggest anybody actually do anything. He said, we're looking at options, and looked to the doctors and said, are we testing that? He's literally just saying, we're exploring options on how to deal with this. Might not have been the smartest options, but let's look at UV lights. I can tell you across this country, UV lights in HVAC systems got promoted heavily because it's been proven that UV lights help disinfect. They will kill bacteria and viruses. I've seen more UV lights for HVAC systems installed in ductwork advertised than ever to kill coronavirus. All right, so that's not far-fetched. And then he's asking if there's a therapeutic way that we could use some kind of disinfectant. He said it's an interesting idea. He didn't say it's what we're going to do. He's just spitballing ideas on how to treat this back in the day. Right? I don't think anybody's reasonably going to watch that clip and go out and try to ingest or inject bleach. If you did, then Darwin Award for you. We're probably better off without you in society. All right. So what do we have next? Next, we have the bloodbath comment. Now, if you've heard about this, it's been framed as he meant political violence. This is what, whenever, like for the longest time, this is what they meant when they said he's talking about political violence. They refer back to his bloodbath comment. So let's take a moment and see how the media framed this.
During a campaign rally in Ohio on Saturday, former President Trump promised to place tariffs on cars manufactured abroad if he's reelected, and made a dire prediction of what would happen if he is not.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
In response to the former president's comments, a campaign spokeswoman told NBC News Biden's policies will create an economic bloodbath for the auto industry and auto workers. A spokesman for President Biden's re-election campaign later said Mr. Trump was doubling down on his threats of political violence with that bloodbath comment.
Hey, thanks for watching.
So there you go. The official statement from the White House. He is doubling down on political violence. And they showed you him say bloodbath, which is a very small snippet of it. So again, let's look at the full context of what he had to say.
Head of the United Auto Workers never probably shook hands with a Republican before. They're destroying. You know, Mexico has taken over a period of 30 years, 34% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country. Think of it. Went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. Now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
Does that sound like political violence, or do you think he's talking about the auto industry or even manufacturing in general, right? When we outsource to other people, guess who doesn't get those jobs? Americans, right? I mean, if anybody's paid attention, the moment we started trading with China on a grand scale, China's economy and its way of life for its people went up exponentially. China's economy took off as we started offshoring to them. They have benefited way better than we have. We got cheap garbage goods in exchange for making them a lot of money at the expense of the American working class. So again, if your takeaway from that context right there is he's talking political violence, you should probably like get your IQ checked or something, you know. Maybe you injected bleach or drank bleach. I don't know. But that's not what I'm hearing. That's not how I'm taking it. So now we have more recent events. How offensive it was that Trump said whether women like it or not. And again, that's a little itty bitty soundbite. And let's see how the media framed that one.
We begin with a quote from Donald Trump. He said this, quote, "Whether you like it or not," on the night before Halloween. Trump resorting to scare tactics as part of his closing argument to the women of America. There's no way to describe just how ominous and frankly creepy Donald Trump's comments were at his rally about women in Wisconsin last night. So here they are, the disgraced, convicted, 4 times indicted, liable for sexual abuse and defamation ex-president in his own words.
I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said we think it's very inappropriate for you to say. So why? I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. They said. They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say, pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not.
So much, right? First of all, you're not president. Second, how bad is it? It's so bad your team says it's inappropriate. And third, like it or not, we don't like it. The Trump campaign is seeking to spin the comments about saying he's protecting women from the border or something. But
From the border or something? Do you see anything fair or balanced here? Can you tell? I mean, you can tell who she's going to vote for. So there's no impartiality if this is trying to claim to be news, right? That's literally the way she 4 times indicted, liable, blah, blah, blah. The sigh with the eye roll. Like, she is as biased as can possibly be. But they try to act like they're news. She's not. She's not. At best, this is commentary. This is, and that's being generous. Really, what it is full-blown activism. This is a propagandist posing as news, right? So they tried to frame it like he was going to protect him from the border. Well, let's see what he said right before the clip that they played.
Over the past 4 years, Kamala has orchestrated the most egregious betrayal that any leader in American history has ever inflicted upon our people. The most egregious. It's disgusting what she did. She's violated her oath and eradicated our sovereign border and unleashed an army of migrant gangs. They're waging a campaign of violence and terror against our citizens like we've never suffered before. We've never had this before in our country. It's an invasion, ladies and gentlemen. It's an invasion. Kamala has imported criminal migrants from prisons and jails, from insane asylums and mental institutions all over the world, from Venezuela to the Congo, including savage criminals who assault, rape, and murder our women and girls. Anyone who would let monsters kidnap and kill our children does not belong anywhere near the Oval Office. And my people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country.
Now I'll stop there because that's obviously where they picked up. So they're trying to frame it exactly how it is. He was talking about protecting women and children from the illegals, especially, the illegals that it's been proven Venezuela has emptied out prisons. And where do those people end up? Here, illegally. So there is no framing about it. There is no way that propagandists didn't understand what he was saying because they have access to the full clip. But they have to make you hate this man. And if that's misogynistic, we need more of that in this country. Sorry, but we do. I'm deeply concerned about the future for my children. My little girls. I don't want them being attacked by these horrible people that we are letting into the country, that we're installing across this country. It shouldn't be happening. And again, they try to frame it again as something he didn't actually mean. What did he mean? He meant his advisors told him, don't say that. And why did they say don't say that? Because they knew it would be taken out of context. And he said, I'm going to say it anyways, whether the women like it or not. He's not even insinuating, if you look at it logically, that he's going to do something, whether the women like it or not, other than to make that statement. I want to protect women and children. So there's another lie that's been floating around massively. And anybody that's been repeating it is, in my opinion, either super ignorant and only let other people tell them what he said, or are not curious at all as to learning the truth, or they're just straight out evil. All right, so the little propagandist also mentioned him being liable for sexual assault and defamation. So let's investigate that a little bit more. What are the details of the E. Jean Carroll ruling, and how did that come about? And this is even by NBC News. So you know they're going to spin it as hard as they can against Trump, but even by their own words, I think you'll see that their claim is not as ironclad as they make it sound.
Danny, explain what this verdict means and the split nature of it on these questions.
The plaintiff here had really two claims. One was for defamation and the other was for the actual sexual assault. And the reason that happened was that originally the statute of limitations had long expired, so the plaintiff here filed a claim for defamation, essentially saying that when Trump called her a liar about her allegations of abuse, that Trump had defamed her. And of course the jury agreed. Then when New York passed a statutory one-year window for all previously expired claims of sexual abuse, civil claims, to be refiled, within half an hour of that statute going into effect, Carroll's legal team filed this civil rape case against Donald Trump. And of course, while the jury did not find that Trump raped E. Jean Carroll, they did find that he sexually abused her, which is really subjecting her to the sexual contact without her consent. So, I mean, this is a very, very clear message that, and I have to say, Lester, I have some of these cases that are under these one-year window, and the challenge is always finding evidence from something that happened decades ago. And what Carroll's verdict tells us is that these cases can be prosecuted, notwithstanding the difficulty in tracking down evidence for an alleged assault that happened in an era that was essentially pre-internet, pre-email, pre-text messaging, and pre the proliferation of video cameras everywhere we go.
So you hear that? She originally sued for defamation for him saying she was lying about the allegations. And then the court decided, hey, you know what? We will ignore the statute of limitations for a year just so that this woman, because I have you heard any other cases since this that were tried because the statute of limitation was gone for that year? I hadn't. You would think you'd hear a lot about that. That would be pretty important. But no, they basically did it so this woman could go up there and say, oh, yeah, and he abused me too. Now, this man even said the problem with that is there's no evidence. You can't get evidence of something that happened 20 years ago. So what evidence did they have? Her claim. That's all they had. And they couldn't even charge him with anything other than sexual assault, and there's details to that we won't get into, but it was literally her word versus his. And to find him to be guilty of defamation, they had to charge him with that and find him guilty or liable of that, right? They had to. Otherwise, there would be no defamation because she would be lying, which she was. I have no doubt. This woman has gone on record before saying nothing ever happened like that. But somebody got in her ear, somebody influenced her and said, hey, come on and do this. I bet she got paid off by, some of that money that goes missing from our government every year. It goes somewhere, right? Probably to influence things like this. And where was it? In a deep blue state where they could absolutely find people that have been propagandized for the past, at this point, it would have been like 6 years, that just think Donald Trump is evil and needs to be held accountable for something, even though the only reason they think he's evil is because the news constantly twists everything about him and tells you he is. So there you go. That's really all they had him for is a woman made a claim. They said, well, it must be true. And you defamed her for saying she lied about it. I don't see anything wrong there that he did, but I see a lot of wrong against him. Now let's see how one of the oldest hoax of all was framed, or is still being framed to this very day, despite it being so absolutely easy to disprove. This is one of those claims, if anybody tells you this, you know that they are ignorant or evil.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Now, what is she insinuating? That he was calling neo-Nazis and white supremacists, right? Or anti-Semites, fine people. This is the oldest hoax there is. And it's been debunked so many times, but it's one of those. Everyone hears the headline. Nobody sees the retraction. So let's look at the incident in question. Yes, he did say there was fine people on both sides, but he also elaborated. So let's see what he had to say.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. Well, no, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, excuse me, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now, we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats.
He literally specifically states, not the neo-Nazis, not the white supremacists, they should be condemned. Now, you're telling me all of these reporters, quote unquote reporters, all these news outlets, all of these people could not take 2 minutes and 26 seconds out of their day to get the full context? Or did they watch the whole entire thing and cherry pick exactly what they wanted you to hear? Exactly what they wanted to spin to turn you against this person? How Trump has not been able to sue all of these people for defamation, for, all sorts of things, I don't know. How these outlets have not had their licenses revoked, I do not understand. Because the game they're playing is absolutely obvious if you just take a moment and look at what's actually happening versus what they're telling you. It's no mistake. It's no coincidence that they're more than happy to say, well, the president is speaking right now, but we're not even going to air what he's saying. We'll tell you what he said. No. Let me decide for myself. Nobody else has to filter anything for me. I can figure out how to interpret things on my own. I'm not a child. I don't need Rachel Maddow's guidance on how to understand the world. I reject that fully and completely, and everybody should. The moment the media makes a claim, you should be curious and say, but did he really though? Is that really the full story? Or are you lying by omission? Are you twisting his words? Are you know, there's a lot of people, and I understand it. You're tired about hearing Trump. But if you're tired of hearing about hateful rhetoric and political violence and all this stuff, really what you're tired of is the mainstream media lying to you. That's what you're tired of. The only reason any of that is even talked about is because the mainstream media will not accurately report on him. They lie, they twist, they manipulate, they omit facts to make people angry so that they won't even think. They've trained people to, I don't even want to hear what Trump says because it's just so awful. It's only awful because they've filtered it and twisted it and then presented it to you. So if you're tired of Trump, you're not really tired of Trump. You're tired of wherever you're getting your news from. Okay, and then since we went from one of the oldest hoax, we'll end with one of the newest. So let's see what they're talking about when we're presented with what Trump recently said about Liz Cheney.
Breaking headline, Vice President Kamala Harris reacting after Donald Trump at a campaign event imagined guns shooting at Liz Cheney, suggesting guns should be trained at her face. Vice President Kamala Harris says the country needs to turn the page on all of this, saying violent rhetoric from Trump makes him unqualified to be president. The vice president with union workers in Janesville, Wisconsin today, making it clear in these final days her promise to lower costs for American families. But the vice president also making it clear Trump's violent rhetoric involving former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney should disqualify him. Vice President Harris on the tarmac saying it shows Trump is, quote, clearly unqualified to be president. The former president campaigning in Warren, Michigan, also focusing on the economy, and Trump traveling with RFK Jr.
See that? He's imagining guns being pointed at her face. And this violent rhetoric should disqualify him. Well, okay, again, let's see what he really said.
But his daughter's a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. But she's a stupid person. And I used to I'd have meetings with a lot of people, and she always wanted to go to war with people. So whether it's her, whether it's Dick, I was surprised a little bit with Dick Cheney. I didn't know him at all. I only had essentially the one.
That's all we need. Obviously, he's saying she would not be so eager to go to war if she had to go herself. Who doesn't agree with that? I mean, have you guys listened to Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, War Pigs? That's exactly what War Pigs is saying. How about Bob Dylan? That's exactly what Bob Dylan would say. That's exactly what the hippies said. That we have war pig, war hawk, warmonger politicians that are more than happy to send your children off to war. But they won't go themselves. They won't send theirs. They're more than happy to kill Americans for what? For what? Name one war in your lifetime that was worth it. I can't name one. And I'm 44 years old. So chances are you can't either. What did we accomplish in Iraq? Nothing. What did we accomplish in Afghanistan? Nothing. What did we accomplish in Syria? Nothing. Other than destruction and death. How's that benefiting anybody? Well, I could tell you who it benefits. It benefits the defense contractors and the politicians that invest in them. Now, I've heard critics say, oh, well, why doesn't Trump go to war? Oh, he had a bone spur. He didn't go to war. He's not sending people to war. You're missing the point if you're thinking that. He's saying the people that are chomping at the bit to go to war should go themselves. They should be on the front lines. They should be the first wave of that war if they're so gung-ho about it. And there's no coincidence that, 1,000 security contractors or whatever, defense people, all supported Kamala and spoke out against Trump. Yeah, because they depend on going to war to make profits. And he is not going to do that. Even right now, he's the only one talking about de-escalating the tensions out there in this world that we're involved in. Nobody else is doing that. You know why? Because they all are invested in that. They all thrive on that. You guys have all heard the quote, the military-industrial complex. Well, you know what that quote was to begin with? The congressional military-industrial complex, because it goes hand in hand. These people would not be voting for war like the way they are or pushing for it if they weren't able to invest in the defense contractors that they're going to pour billions of dollars into to do this, while they grind your children on the battlefield. This is exactly why politicians should not be able to invest in the market. This is exactly why they should divest. They should eliminate all of their holdings if they're going to hold a political office, because you should not be able to invest in something that's going to benefit from your actions. Otherwise, your actions are always going to benefit it because it benefits you. This is like a giant money laundering scheme, and it's nobody will stop it. And this is both sides. Don't get me wrong. I mean, and again, but the Cheneys are warmongers. We know this. Dick Cheney was a despicable person. For years, the Democrats would have condemned him and would have wanted nothing to do with him. And now they're celebrating his endorsement and his daughters. Does that not bother anybody? If you're a lefty, shouldn't you be anti-war? Wasn't that always the thing? But now all of a sudden, it's war, 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 war. And somehow, the person on the Republican side is the anti-war, even though it was always the Republicans that were war, war, war. So, I mean, you can see who's a part of the Uniparty right now. It's all of the people on the left and the Cheneys and the Nikki Haleys. It's not hard to identify. All you need to know is if a politician is chomping at the bit for war, they are self-serving. They're not representing you. Who do you want to go to war with right now? Who do you think we should invade? Who do you think we should attack? Russia, maybe? Or China? Well, China provides all of our goods. Who did that? The politicians. Russia. What's Russia actually done to us? Nothing. They've invaded some countries, but that was because of our actions. That was because we swore to never expand NATO, and then we expanded NATO, and expanded NATO, and expanded NATO, and threatened to put it right on their border. Of course they were going to do something. We would have done the same thing if the roles were reversed, and nobody would have questioned it. But it's obvious to me he's not saying... I've seen some people say he said Liz Cheney should be in front of a firing squad. Obviously not what he said. But if you take away anything from this video, it's you have one party now that is all about war, and the other party is against it, or at least starting to be against it, because even a lot of the Republicans don't claim Trump. He's basically MAGA's, the whole MAGA movement is a whole new party that rejects all of the bad things from the Democrats and the Republicans. And everyone should be celebrating it, but a lot of people aren't, because the propaganda, mainstream media, the fake news, the system is rejecting them because they know everything that they're doing is wrong, and it's all under threat of falling apart by letting somebody in there that actually cares about you and me. All right, I'm going to end it there. Hey, if you're like me, like I say, I'm 44 years old. I'm one of those old cudgeons that would run around lately, and this is not politically related. It's I've been guilty of this. I feel like there's no good music coming out anymore. And recently I started doing some digging just through YouTube and following recommendations and listening to songs that hadn't necessarily gotten a lot of views or anything. And I'll tell you, there's plenty of good music being made out there. It's just not hitting the mainstream. It's being gatekept out of the mainstream media, off of the radio stations. And if you're interested in a wide variety of musical genres, check out my playlist. I have a music playlist of songs that mostly are within the last year or so that I think are good or deserve more attention. There are some mixed in there that are older, without a doubt. Skinny Puppy, or The Crystal Method, or the Glitch Mob are some examples of some older songs in there. But I found a lot of good music recently. And if you're like me and think that there is, or like I was, and think there's no good music out there anymore, check it out. You might be surprised. You might see a new band. You might find a whole new genre that you haven't heard of before. Because I'll tell you right now, music literally is in a better place than it's probably ever been, because everyone's free to pursue whatever they want. They don't have a label telling them that's not going to sell. They're not making music just to get views. I mean, some people are, but there's a lot of people out there that are just doing what they want to do or what they're passionate about. And I want to bring a light to those people. So again, check out my playlist. You might find some stuff that you've never seen before that you end up enjoying. So with that, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you all for joining me. As always, I hope you have a great day.